Hello, it's nearly Christmas. Everyone is very excited, everyone's doing their shopping, everyone's getting the food in, and hopefully everyone at some point will check out an awesome nativity play. One of the most beautiful things of seeing people walking around dressed in tea towels, retelling the story of Jesus' birth. But if you look at the Bible, how much do you actually know about the story, and how much do we actually know about what happened on that night that Jesus was born? For your Christmas enjoyment and to help you understand the reason for the season, this is 5 things that you need to know about the Nativity. Number 1. There's no donkey. Now, I know what you're thinking. Little donkey, that's like the best Christmas song ever. Well, doesn't matter, there was no donkey. In the scripture, it doesn't say anything about Mary riding on a donkey. Now, granted, the trip that her and Joseph would have had to take was about 80 miles. Granted, she was very pregnant. Granted, she probably would have had to find some way of getting there, but it never says it was a donkey. Number 2. There's no stable or innkeepers. So, technically, when Joseph arrived in Bethlehem looking for a place to kind of settle, everyone assumes he went to the innkeeper, knocked on the door, sorry, no room at the inn, right to the door, sorry, no. Doesn't happen, not if you check the Bible. Now, one of the thinkings is that when Joseph returned to Bethlehem, he would have gone looking for a family relative or place to stay with someone he knew. Now, chances are, rocking up at a family house with a woman who wasn't your wife but was pregnant probably wouldn't have made you many friends. And actually, one of the thoughts now is that Joseph might have been knocking on those doors and getting turned away, not because there was no room at the inn, but because they didn't want him, because he stuck with Mary, and they didn't believe why he was there. I think that changes the whole understanding of how awesome Joseph is for sticking with his wife-to-be and making sure that she was okay. The Bible doesn't also mention a stable. All that we get is Jesus being laid in a manger, so everyone assumes manger, that's where cattle must have been in a stable. Thing is though, back in the day, animals were usually kept in the family home or under the family home. Sometimes it was in a cave or separate outer building, but it certainly wasn't that kind of beautiful wooden stable that we all imagine. Jesus was probably born in something far less glamorous, a lot more messy, and a lot more busy and noisy. Number 3. There were not 3 kings. Okay, so here's the deal. In the Bible it mentions 3 gifts, gold, frankincense and myrrh. It mentions who bought them, but it never calls them kings, and it never says there are 3 of them. All it says is that the magi, so astrologers or astronomers or kind of wise people, rock up with these 3 gifts. At no point does it say there are 3 of them, we just assume there's 3 because they brought 3 presents. Now, they might have clubbed together, they might have gone halves, who knows? There might have been 6, 12, 20, we don't know. And that's a wonderful thing because we assume that we know everything about that story, and we don't. We also assume that they arrived on the night, and they didn't. Shepherds, fair enough. They were there at the party, brought their lambs, check us out. The wise men, no, they were late to the party. In fact, if you read scripture, it says they were quite a bit later, and that they visited Mary and Joseph in a house. Very deliberately, it says the word house. And so actually, we know that this is quite a bit of time after Jesus has been born. Interesting fact, true. And of course, if you think about it, on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, you don't hear the story of the wise men. They don't arrive to the Feast of the Epiphany on the 6th of January. Number 4, there are no animals. Seriously, is there anything left? In the Bible, it doesn't mention there being any animals present. Often in the nativity play, we see all the animals gathered around. The sheep and the camels and the oxen and the lobsters. And we just assume that they were all there just kind of watching Jesus going, oh, isn't he cool? And yet at no point does it mention the animals. Granted, like we said before, it mentions a manger, which was a kind of like feeding trough for the animals. So yeah, they might have been there, but it doesn't say so in the Bible. And so we don't know for definite. The Nativity story is one of the most incredible stories in the world. Not because of all the extra bits that we add in, not because of all the things that we put in because they're really cute and look really nice when people are dressed up in the little plays, because actually at the heart of it is a story of 3 really important people. Joseph, a father who stuck with his wife-to-be despite the fact that it would have brought him shame and embarrassment because she was pregnant and it wasn't his. Joseph, a man who stuck with a wife even though everybody else would have probably telling him to ditch her, he was like, actually no, God's got a plan for me and I'm going to play my part. He was strong, he looked after her, he took care of her and he kept her safe. And considering the conditions that Jesus was born in, I think that's incredible. Mary, she probably would have been about 14 years old, and yet said yes to God. Yes to being the mother of Christ. Yes to bringing Christ into the world. And yes to all the dangers that would have been associated with having a baby and not being married. The punishment for that was being stoned to death. And at 14 she said, you know what, I'm brave enough, I'm strong enough, I'm going to say yes. She's incredible. And she managed to make it 80 miles whilst fully pregnant and then give birth to a child in a completely alien place in dirty, dank, scary conditions and raise that child to change the entire world. And then of course in the middle of all that, it's about a baby. Not coming to the earth as a massive warrior king, but coming to the earth as a tiny baby. A vulnerable, scared, crying probably quite a lot despite the Christmas carols, little baby. A baby that changed the entire world because it was born on that night with Mary and Joseph there. This year, let's make sure that sacrifice and love are the heart of our Christmas story, despite all the extra fluffy bits we put around the outside. So that when we're watching that play, or listening to that story, or remembering that night 2,000 odd years ago, we're remembering what it's really about, and what it really means for us in our lives. Have an incredible Christmas, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.